So what's next on the agenda for David Taylor? He's now the head coach. He's at Stillwater. Crazy time for him and Thomas Gilman and Jimmy Kennedy as they look to uproot from State College, Pennsylvania, and make the move, make the transition to the head coaches and the coaches of Oklahoma State and make the move to Stillwater. But there's still a lot of moves yet to be made for Coach Taylor and company. Now, he's named two of his assistant coaches. Jimmy Kennedy is the associate head coach, someone that's been under Cale Sanderson for a couple years at Penn State, and Thomas Gilman, who's been alongside David at Nittany Lion. And I'm going to briefly get into, I talked about this on the show, why these were such great hires. And then I'm going to get into the next items kind of on the list for David Taylor and the hires he has to make and kind of what the rest of this offseason may look like for Coach Taylor and company. I have to get used to calling him Coach Taylor. So, one, the hire of Jimmy Kennedy. I tweeted that was probably going to happen in advance because, well, they're family, one, right? Jimmy is David's brother-in-law. They're very close. And you saw that, Jimmy going from Northwestern to Penn State probably doesn't happen if David's not there. Well, you say that, but then one thing I was thinking about was, do you really think for a second Cale Sanderson is going to hire anyone because of a favor to a wrestler he's coached? Right? Do you think that's how Cale operates? It's not how I think he operates. I think he's only going to hire someone if he thinks they're the absolute best person for that job. So already you have the endorsement of the greatest college coach of all time, very possibly, certainly the greatest living coach in college sports right now. That kind of goes without saying. He said, no, Jimmy Kennedy is someone I want on my staff. Do you know how many people want that spot at Penn State? A lot. Who doesn't want that job? So that's an endorsement, and Jimmy's been there, and he's been alongside Coach Sanderson and company for a couple of years. So you're bringing that guy over, okay? Slam dunk. Thomas Gilman is someone that was also coveted, someone that many entities, institutions, schools wanted to hire as a coach. And everyone has said around programs, everywhere he's been, this guy's going to make a great coach. This guy's going to be a great coach. And it's interesting because you feel like you know Gilman, even though, I've probably had less than 10 conversations with the guy other than interviews, but you do feel like, man, this is going to work, right? He is going to be a selfless servant leader, and that's something that David, Jimmy, Thomas all talk about. So you feel like that staff is just rock solid and smart and young and gonna be able to do a great job. But now what's next for Coach Taylor? Well, there's another assistant position open, right? That has not yet been filled, and I believe they're actively looking to fill that spot. There's someone they were going after, and they ended up getting them. That candidate ended up staying where they were. So there's others, but it seems like they're probably eyeing a big guy. They probably want a heavyweight type of a coach, someone that can roll still. And so, but maybe not. I don't know what direction they're going. All I know is that's a job that is yet to be filled. So that's one thing he's got to do. Director of Operations. I think for David Taylor, this is a key hire. This is someone who, David Taylor's going to be the coach. He's going to be the CEO. He talked about this, but one thing that's going to really make his job a lot easier and allow David to focus on the things that he's great at is having someone, Director of Operations doesn't sound like a sexy job, like the most exciting thing, or no one's going to say, wow, I'm going there because they have a great Director of Operations. But this is a job that makes a huge difference for a coach, especially a first-year head coach. And I think whoever he taps, I think is someone that's going to complement that staff and going to bring some experience. This is a big hire, and even though the name, will it ring out, will it not ring out, I don't know. That's a key hire for David Taylor. Now, the other spots are TBD. These aren't necessarily going to be filled or not filled in right now, but one, he said it in no uncertain terms, we're going to have a world-class RTC here. So what does that look like? All right, they want to get Dayton fixed there. He's making Dayton a priority. That's smart. That's smart for a multitude of levels. One, Dayton clearly can still compete. He's just graduated college, and he's a world silver medalist at the senior level. He's a guy that's been contending for world teams. He's made multiple world teams already as a college athlete. His development can continue. So keeping him and keeping that Oklahoma, David Dayton Fix is Oklahoma wrestling, is Oklahoma State. He is Stillwater. So keeping someone like that around just makes a lot of sense, not just politically, but from a wrestling perspective as well. But who else does he bring in? Because if you want a world-class guy, there's only so many of them. If you really want someone that's world champion, world caliber level, you're either having to go, kind of back to state college and bring some guys over. You got to look around. Is it an Andrew Alirez, who is someone who's looking for a long-term home? Andrew Alirez is in the transfer portal. He is an NCAA champion. He is someone who won senior nationals. He is a legit senior level wrestler. He has a win over Haji Aliyev. If you don't know who that is, just Google Hagialev and look at that guy's accolades. Andrew Alirez has a win over him. That's legit. And that's someone, if you bring him in, and one, he's going to help your college team, and then boom, he's a nice cog for your RTC if you get him. Does he go after Gable Steveson? I don't know. I feel like the pursuit of Gable Steveson, it's like he needs to first pursue and figure out what he wants to do, right? So I don't know if they go after Gable or not. But if Gable wants to wrestle, Oklahoma State could be a good destination for him. So do they fill that RTC, and how quickly do they do it? Do they wait? Does he wait till after the Olympics, or do they start getting aggressive right now and filling that RTC with wrestlers? Because the funding is going to be there. It is there. They have the money to fund an RTC and bring guys in. Are they going to have an RTC head coach? That's something that most of these RTCs have. Cliff Keen has it. Nittany Lion has it, and Jake Varner. Iowa has it, and Dan Dennis. Is he going to get an RTC coach? I would assume that that's going to be the case, and that they're not going to want to have someone on the college staff also have to navigate that. And with the funding levels, they should be able to bring someone in. So you got an RTC head coach, you've got RTC athletes, director of operations, that other assistant can all come in. And now the other fallout, the other things where the dominoes we're maybe waiting to see fall or not fall, are what happens with the current wrestlers on the Oklahoma State team. David was basically like, look, we want you guys here. We want you to be here, but we want wrestlers to be here that also want to be here. So if you don't, we're gonna show grace and let you guys go. The same grace that he said that he was shown when he committed to Iowa State. He didn't just commit to Iowa State and say, yeah, I'm going to Iowa State. He signed the legally binding document that said, I will wrestle at Iowa State next year. And David Taylor has always been given a lot of credit to Kevin Jackson, who granted him his release and let him go to Penn State. And Kevin Jackson could have held him to that, and he didn't do it. And so that grace that was extended to David is now going to be extended to these Oklahoma State guys. Now, the exact mechanism with that is still sort of unclear to me, because the transfer rules, as I understand them, and when I say I understand them, I call coaches and people that are in compliance, and they say, hey, what is the transfer rule here? And they all say, with coaches, because if your head coach leaves, the portal rules kind of go out the window for 30 days. Well, John Smith announced his retirement April 11th. A month has passed, and these Cowboys have not gone in the portal. 30 days has gone by. So is there an additional window with David Taylor's hiring? Everyone said that I've talked to, no, there's no such thing, but it sounds like there is going to be some sort of window of opportunity for these guys to leave if they do want to leave. So the question is, will they want to leave? Coleman Scott and John Smith and company are gone. Do you want to wrestle for David Taylor or not? Do you want to give it a shot or not? And that's what we're waiting to find out. And I don't know what would be the deciding factors. David's going to come in and try to establish his culture and how things are going to operate. And I can imagine they're going to be very different. He's already implementing changes. That the wrestling room at Oklahoma State has always been open. And anyone off the street could walk in, walk there. I've been in practices, which is evidence enough that it's pretty open. But I'll be in there, and you're watching or filming or whatever. And then, you got a group of people off the street. Coach Smith would come in and talk to them, and always very gracious with guests. But the doors are shut, and practices are closed. And faces, I'm not talking people off the street, people that have been able to come in and watch practice in the past and been a part of the program, that's closed. So that's one little thing, but he's already establishing that culture. And so as that culture gets established, who wants to remain? And so we don't know that yet. So we don't know who's necessarily leaving, if anyone. They could all stay. They could say, hey, man, I have the opportunity to be on the ground floor of David Taylor. What could be the next, big college program, right? We're already a pretty good team. Could David Taylor and company enhance us and maybe get us to that next level? Maybe they all give it a year. I don't know. But I said it before he was even hired. There's going to be attrition here. You almost always see it with any coaching change ever. Guys leave. So I still wouldn't be surprised to see some of those Cowboys hit the portal at some point in time. And then the final thing is who comes in, right? Jimmy Kennedy talked openly about, hey, we would love to have Wyatt Hendrickson here. He was on a visit here. He would add a lot. He's a monster at the heavyweight class. It scores a lot of bonus points. Hey, you want to beat Greg Kirkfleet? We know that guy. We've wrestled with that guy. That's maybe a said or unsaid pitch, but they were alongside Greg. They've watched the matches, and either way, Wyatt Hendrickson is someone that's going to absolutely help Oklahoma State, whether he wins NCAAs or not, whether he beats Greg or not. He's going to come in. He's going to be a good culture fit for, I think, what David's trying to do there. He's a great guy, hard worker, face of the program type of guy for Air Force, and no one has a bad thing to say about Wyatt Hendrickson. Maybe they bring him in. Are they in the market for Andrew Ramirez? It seems so. So their roster is still maybe a little bit in flux, but the bottom line is this. They owe a thanks to that previous staff for the team that they're inheriting. This was a really good team. This was a team that we had a blast following over the last season. This was a team that spent a month plus ranked number 2 in the country. And we said all last year, hey, whoever gets second, it's a flip of the coin. We don't know who it's going to be. And we said it could be any one of these 8, 9, 10 teams. And then they ended up finishing 10th. And they had Spratley, maybe a slight underperformance, and some other guys that were really good. I mean, NCAAs is a crazy tournament. But now they're left with a really good team. And they only lost Dayton Fix. Now I say only, that's significant. This is a guy who made the finals 4 times, right? That's not easily replaced, not to mention the leadership and consistency that he provided. But you got Cale Hughes coming in. Cale Hughes just had a really strong performance at U20s. He's going to be viable at minimum. He's going to be a really good wrestler for them. They have other wrestlers. They're deep. They have depth. They've got Carter Young coming off redshirt, who Jimmy Kennedy worked with. And when Jimmy Kennedy was working with him, honestly, that was the best tournament we ever saw Carter Young have. When he beat Seth Gross, and when he beat Tyler Graff, and he beat Nashawn Garrett, all in the same tournament. Carter Young did this. That guy's still there at Oklahoma State, and he's got a couple years of eligibility remaining. They've got Spratley. They've got Taggin Jameson. Teague Travis is there. Dean Hamady transferred in. What could Dean Hamady be? What could Dustin Plott be? Right? This guy's an NCAA finalist. He kind of killed everybody outside of Parker Keckeisen, who killed literally everybody. Bonus his way through NCAAs. Serber's back. Doucette's back. Caleb Fish transferred in. This is a loaded squad, and they're going to be in the driver's seat to trophy next year without a doubt. And you add in a couple other pieces, it's going to be a really fun team to follow. And I think it's good for the off season, right? Because we have the Olympics, and that's going to be exciting. But there's not as much international wrestling going on with the Olympics happening. So I think we're going to have a lot of off-season stories around the Oklahoma State roster changes, the hires, the movement, and it's just going to make for a really exciting off-season leading into one of the most anticipated seasons of college wrestling.